3 years of doubt. Critics said the Tesla Semi would never make it in real trucking. Then DHL ran the ultimate test. 3,000 miles over 2 weeks, pushing a 75,000-pound beast through routes diesel drivers thought impossible for electric. The Semi didn't just survive, it completed a 390-mile haul on a single charge with power left over. But here's what nobody saw coming: 1.72 kilowatt-hours per mile when rivals struggle past 2.0. Even Elon Musk admitted he underestimated it. So what's actually happening under that hood? Why are veteran drivers saying they'd rather retire than go back to diesel? DHL didn't baby this truck. Jim Monkmeyer, president of transportation at DHL Supply Chain North America, made one thing clear. They wanted reality, not a controlled demo. So they loaded 75,000 pounds of actual freight and pointed the Semi at a 390-mile route that would break most electric trucks. The engineering team placed bets on where it would die. Highway speeds, full load, real weather conditions. This wasn't a test drive, it was an execution attempt. The Semi crossed the finish line with charge remaining, not limping in on fumes, but with genuine power left over. Over the next 2 weeks, DHL pushed another 2,600 miles through that truck, averaging over 50 miles per hour on public roads. When they analyzed the data, the number that came back stopped the room cold: 1.72 kilowatt-hours per mile. Industry standard for electric Class 8 trucks hovers between 2.0 and 2.2. How did Tesla shave off nearly 15% in energy consumption? Here's where it gets weird. Traditional thinking says electric trucks sacrifice performance for efficiency. You want range? You drive slower. You want power? You drain the battery faster. The Semi apparently missed that memo. It climbs 8 to 10% grades at 60 miles per hour while maintaining efficiency numbers that make engineers scratch their heads. A diesel truck grinding up that same hill burns fuel exponentially. The Semi just doesn't. The secret isn't just the battery, it's the entire system working as one organism. Regenerative braking recovers nearly 100% of energy on downhill runs. That energy gets pumped back into the battery pack, essentially giving you free miles. On mountain roads, some drivers report arriving with more charge than they started with after descents. Physics shouldn't work that way, but the data doesn't lie. Tom Sturba has been driving trucks for decades. He's seen every gimmick, every revolutionary cab design, every promise from manufacturers. When Safeway offered him the Tesla Semi, he expected another overhyped disappointment. 3 months later, he told his supervisor he'd rather retire than go back to diesel. That's not marketing speak. That's a veteran driver burning bridges with his entire career. Michael Davis volunteered immediately when the Semi arrived at his depot. Senior driver, seen it all, figured he'd humor the EV hype for a week. His quote says everything. It did not disappoint at all. But here's the part that should terrify diesel manufacturers. Davis talks about the Semi the way people talk about discovering smartphones after using flip phones. It's not an upgrade. It's a different category of machine. The silence gets mentioned most. Diesel engines produce constant noise and vibration that drivers normalize until they don't have to deal with it anymore. The Semi runs whisper quiet. No engine roar, no transmission whine, just the sound of tires on pavement. Drivers report arriving less fatigued, more focused, actually wanting to drive the next day. When was the last time you heard a trucker say that? For 3 years, Elon Musk barely mentioned the Semi. No tweets, no stage demos, no bold predictions. People assumed it was vaporware, another Tesla project that would quietly disappear. Then during a 2024 earnings call, he dropped this bomb. We got 3 massive products starting production next year. We got Optimus, we got Tesla Semi, and we got the Cybercab. The Semi suddenly elevated to core product status alongside humanoid robots and autonomous taxis. What changed? Tesla finally had real-world data. Every Semi on the road was essentially a prototype, gathering information 24/7. Battery performance under load, chassis, stress points, aerodynamic efficiency in actual weather, charging patterns across different routes, the kind of data you can't simulate in a lab. And apparently that data showed something even Musk didn't predict. The Semi was exceeding its own specifications by significant margins. This might be the first time in Tesla's history that they undersold a product. Usually it's the opposite. Big promises, delayed delivery, eventual compromise. The Semi broke its own records before mass production even started. Does that mean Tesla accidentally built something better than they designed? Northern Nevada, a brand new facility built specifically for the Semi, not a repurposed space or shared production line. Before this, Tesla was essentially hand-building each Semi, skilled workers, custom processes, low volume. The new Gigafactory flips that script entirely. Full automation, dedicated assembly lines, standardized components. The target, 50,000 units per year. Let's break that down. That's 4,166 trucks per month, 960 per week, roughly 192 rolling off the line every single day. For context, Peterbilt manufactures about 60,000 heavy-duty trucks annually, and they've been in business since 1939. Tesla's aiming to match 80% of that output in year one of true mass production, with a truck that's only been in limited production for 3 years. The real question, can they actually hit those numbers? Tesla's notorious for missing production targets. But here's what's different. They've solved the battery constraint. The 4,680 cell production is finally ramped. The chassis design is locked. The software is stable. Every major bottleneck that plagued early semi-production has been cleared. The factory exists, the supply chain is established, and the demand is absolutely there. Maybe 50,000 isn't optimistic. Maybe it's conservative. The Semis coming out of the new factory won't be the 2017 prototype design. Tesla's been quietly engineering a complete overhaul for the 2026 model. The changes start with aerodynamics. A cleaner front end, simplified bumper, rounded cab roof, and shorter windshield. That massive rear glass from the original design? Gone. It looked cool but served zero functional purpose while adding weight and complexity. These aren't cosmetic tweaks. The drag coefficient drops from 0.36 to 0.33. That sounds like nothing, 0.03 of a point. But at highway speeds over hundreds of miles, that 0.03 improvement translates to 5 to 8% better energy efficiency. That's dozens of extra miles per charge, thousands of dollars in savings per year, compounded across an entire fleet. The chassis got optimized too. The base weight now sits below 23,000 pounds. Every pound removed from the truck is another pound of payload capacity, another mile of range, another competitive advantage. And when it's time to charge, the 2026 model supports 1.2 megawatt charging speeds. That's fast enough to add 400 miles of range in the time it takes to grab lunch and run a safety inspection. Battery strategy splits into two paths. Long-range semis use 4,680 cells, high energy density, stable power delivery under heavy load. Short-range versions get LFP cells, which are 40% cheaper, incredibly durable, and perfect for urban delivery routes under 200 miles. Companies that only need short-distance operations can grab a Semi for around $160,000 instead of $200,000. Suddenly, the economics work even for regional carriers. Notice that new camera location above the front wheel arch on the 2026 model? That's not for parking assistance. Tesla's preparing the Semi for full self-driving capability. When that software finally arrives, the entire trucking business model explodes and rebuilds itself. A diesel truck with a human driver operates maybe 12 hours per day due to mandatory rest periods. An FD Semi could theoretically run 23 hours, stopping only for 30 to 40-minute charging sessions. No fatigue, no distraction, no labor shortages. The math gets absurd. A truck that operates twice as many hours generates twice the revenue while cutting the single largest operating cost, the driver's salary, completely. But there's a darker question lurking here. What happens to the 3.5 million truck drivers in America when autonomous semis flood the roads? Tesla's not building 50,000 trucks to replace diesel. They're building them to replace drivers. The trucking industry is already facing a driver shortage. FSD doesn't solve that problem. It eliminates the need for a solution. Is that progress or disruption we're not ready for? $200,000 for a truck sounds expensive. A comparable diesel, Class 8, runs about $180,000. But that $20,000 difference evaporates in the first 6 months of operation. Tesla claims refueling costs half as much as diesel, about 30 cents per mile versus 50 plus cents for diesel at $3.66 per gallon. On a 6.5-mile trip, that's $3.30 versus nearly $6. Multiply that across thousands of miles, and you're saving $150,000 within 3 years. Then there's maintenance. Diesel engines are mechanical nightmares. Hundreds of moving parts constantly wearing down. Oil changes, fuel filter replacements, transmission servicing, turbocharger maintenance, emission system repairs. Electric motors have maybe a dozen moving parts total. No oil changes, no transmission fluid, no exhaust systems to fail. Regenerative braking means brake pads last exponentially longer. Maintenance costs drop 40 to 60%, from $20,000 to $30,000 per year, down to $8,000 to $15,000. Fleet operators aren't buying trucks based on sticker price anymore. They're running total cost of ownership calculations, and the Semi wins that battle convincingly. The upfront premium becomes an investment that pays for itself while the truck is still under warranty. But here's the uncomfortable truth. These savings only work if you're running the truck hard. Low-mileage operators won't see the same returns. The Semi rewards volume, which means it accelerates the consolidation of smaller carriers into megafleets. Elon confirmed the Semi will roll out globally. Australia wants them, Europe needs them. But both markets have problems Tesla can't simply engineer away. In Australia, the Semi exceeds maximum legal width, 8.5 feet versus the 8.37-foot limit. Changing that requires Parliament to rewrite transportation law. How long does that take? Months? Years? Europe's complications run deeper. The Semi uses a conventional long-nose design common in America. Europe prefers cab-over configurations that maximize cargo space while meeting strict length regulations. The center driving position that works perfectly in the U.S. violates European expectations for offset driver placement. And long-haul trucks in Europe require sleeper cabins as standard, something the current Semi doesn't have. Then there's the service network problem. Volvo already has 3,000 electric trucks operating in Europe with established support infrastructure. Mercedes, Scania, MAN, they all have century-old dealer networks that can service trucks anywhere on the continent within hours. Tesla's European presence is still scattered and insufficient. A truck that breaks down in rural Germany with no nearby service center isn't just inconvenient, it's catastrophic for business. Volvo's FH Electric manages 373 miles of range. Mercedes' e-Actro's 600 hits 311 miles. The Semi's 500-mile range and 1.7 kilowatt-hours per mile efficiency crushes them on paper. But paper specs don't matter if you can't get the truck serviced, can't legally drive it on local roads, and can't convince drivers to adapt to an unfamiliar cabin layout. Is Tesla's engineering advantage enough to overcome a century of established European trucking culture? So what's actually happening under that hood that's making drivers refuse to go back? It's not just the 1.72 kilowatt-hours efficiency or the silent cabin. It's the realization that diesel wasn't the ceiling, it was the floor. The Semi isn't replacing trucks, it's redefining what trucks can be. And when FSD arrives, we're not talking about better transportation. We're watching the blueprint for autonomous freight networks that could reshape global logistics. Here's what matters. Tesla proved the technology works at scale. DHL's 3,000-mile test wasn't a victory lap, it was a declaration. The 2026 production ramp to 50,000 units isn't ambitious anymore. It's inevitable. While Europe and Australia wrestle with regulations, North America gets a 5-year head start building the infrastructure that every other market will eventually copy. The real question isn't whether electric trucks will dominate. It's whether legacy manufacturers can adapt fast enough to compete. Because the drivers have already voted with their careers, they'd rather retire than go backward. What do you think hits first? 50,000 Semis on the road or full self-driving approval for Class 8? This is Tesla Zone, where we track the tech that's actually changing industries. For the next development in autonomous trucking, you know where to find us. The diesel era didn't end with a bang. It's ending with silence.